rule Britannia. Yes, both England, Scotland, and possibly Wales are represented in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And, though a clear majority of the game takes place in England from north to south, the game sets off from none other than southern Scotland. So today, we will look closer at the opening, first town, and possible connection to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time inside Pokemon Sword and Shield. Hello everyone, and welcome to the first regular episode of Inside Pokemon Sword and Shield. Following the introduction last Thursday, a few more details have surfaced, in particular when it comes to the opening area of the game, which isn't located in southern western England, but rather Scotland, south of Glasgow and Edinburgh, close to the border with England. It is kind of a bummer that none of those cities made their way into Sword and Shield. This goes in particular for beautiful Edinburgh. So, just where is the location of the Scottish town? It comes down to 3 clues: starting outfit, geography, and railway, which abruptly ends in the Lake District. So, let's begin constructing our Scottish opening by looking closer at the clothing. Since while the male trainer wears a regular beanie and doesn't have any defining traits, unless we count that kilt pattern on the upper part of his trousers, the female trainer is a whole different story. As we can see, she isn't wearing any kind of hat, but the female green version of the traditional Scottish tam o' shanter hat, which is a combination of a beret and a buff hat often used for hunting in Scotland. This is also accompanied by her green kilt-like socks. So in this regard, we owe all of our Scottish fans a sincere apology for our mistake in the analysis. At least in return, you're getting an opening area which is set in your country. So, why don't we take a closer look at the geography of the Scottish area of the Gala region before we go into the town, since where specifically in southern Scotland are we? There are a few clues, the first being the lake next to town, the second being the mountains marking the boundary to England to the north or south, and to the left next to our starting house a misty forest. So, how does this description fit with Scotland? We think that we know specifically where the town is located, and it's next to Galloway Forest Park and the town of Dumfries. This is the only area in southern Scotland close to the English border with a combination we're really looking for, closer to forest, lakes, mountains, and a town with a railway station. With our starting location pretty much in place, let's look over the town where we will get our first starter Pokemon and face our most likely more affluent rival from that fletchling and Sun and Moon house. It appears that our adventure will begin in our modest Scottish home as we get dressed in patriotic colours, geared with mountain boots, put on our backpack, and head out to either the town or forest to get our starter Pokemon, Grookey, Scorbunny, or Sobble. We then head down Route 01 down to our town. Based on the detailed map provided by Game Freak and Sword and Shield reveal trailer, we know that there are 2 locations that might host Pokemon professors. According to Game Explain, it is likely that the first one is located in the purple half-timbered house in the opening town next to the town's Poké Center and railway station, while the second professor, who Game Explain believes will hand us our Pokédex and set us on a test prior to leaving Scotland, is located to the upper right, next to the lake as seen in the reveal trailer and here on this map. It is likely that it will go down like this. You leave your home, get involved in something, get your first Pokemon in the town or the forest, are sent with your rival to the other professor, catch a few Pokemon on your way back, beat a few trainers and rivals prior to embarking on the Scottish rail through the border to what we know as England. Before we cross over to England, we have to address one thing, mainly that the Gala region reorganised spells Regal, and is an acronym for Regal. Seeing that Britain consists of the British and Scottish crowns which make up the United Kingdom, it makes sense that we start our adventure from Scotland and humble origins on our path to London. So from now on, we will use the flag of St Andrew, as Scotland is key to the main character and the opening town. And this is quite significant since southern Scotland is our tutorial or opening area where we will get our first Pokemon, catch our first Pokemon, and battle against our first rival and perhaps evil team, if this one isn't being saved for you until you leave your town on the train. So yes, it will be Scotland first and England second, and the area will be important for Game Freak as they want new and old players to get accustomed to the controls and mechanics which are brand new after Pokemon emigrated from the 3DS to Nintendo Switch. That, and the fact that Pokemon Sword and Shield is transitioning to HD, is as monumental for Pokemon as the transition to 3D was for Zelda in Nintendo 64's Ocarina of Time. But there is something fishy about all this, starting in a house, exploring a town, then heading up to another house prior to getting out what looks like an open field of lakes with no linear path leading to a big walled town. Isn't this the same progression as the one found in Ocarina of Time?
Indeed, the resemblance is insane, and yes, we understand that it might be a homage from the side of Pokémon on the great transition from 2D to 3D in Zelda, but it just fits too well to not be true. So let's sit down here for a few minutes and go over all the clues. Number 1. The progression where you go from your home into your town, get your starter Pokémon, and get a few tasks done, then get permission to go to the second professor next to the lake and face a challenge from your rival, and after conquering this one, obtain a key item in the form of the Pokédex, possibly explore the misty forest next to your house, prior to being told to depart from your town's railway station, which will bring you over to the border to what we know as the Kingdom of England and the Lake District, and from here on out to the Industrial Wall Town. It's pretty much the same as in Ocarina of Time, where you wake up in your house, head out to Kokiri Forest, find the Kokiri Sword, and by the shield are allowed to enter the Great Deku Tree, obtain the Kokiri Emerald. If you wish to explore the Lost Woods prior to departing Kokiri Forest, you're free to do so, pass through a tunnel to Hyrule Field, cross Hyrule Field, and finally reach Hyrule Castle Town.
Do you see the connection? Because it is damn identical. Everything from the very beginning to the way we progress is identical. So what more could Ocarina of Time's first 4 to 5 locations tell about the level design of Pokemon Sword and Shield's Scottish starter town and area, the Lake Districts, and the Industrial Town? Well, it does appear that the starter town will likely serve and be laid out as Kokiri Forest in Ocarina of Time, where you get a means to fight for yourself. You start a Pokemon, buy Pokeballs to catch your first Pokemon, and first after this and some exploration of your town, Poke Center and Lab, and shops in this one, you'll be allowed to head out to the second location, which is Sword and Shield's equivalent to the Great Deku Tree. Overall, your Scottish town and Kokiri Forest are there to get you accustomed to the controls and obtain your first, but at the same time, key items.
In Pokemon Sword and Shield, it is your starter Pokemon and Pokeballs, while in Ocarina of Time it is the Kokiri Sword and the Shield. Sword and Shield. Kind of makes sense. Both areas are to an extent open, but requires you to learn and master things before you can meet the professor that will hand you your Pokédex in Sword and Shield, and meet the Great Deku Tree to obtain the Kokiri Emerald in Ocarina of Time. At the same time, you're probably free to enter the Misty Forest or the Lost Woods at your own risk, though this is likely an area you will return to later. Overall, the opening, town, lake, and professor building plus forest opening area to get used to the mechanics of the game and be tested for future challenges in a relatively open but clearly small and limited environment. Your hardest rival is probably your local neighbour, seeing that Scotland has no gyms or stadiums, only training and battlegrounds, and you have to embark the train and cross the border from Scotland to England to begin collecting badges or trophies to qualify for the Pokemon League of Galar.
So you passed the trial, but what is your reward besides the items? Well, permission to depart from Kokiri Forest to Hyrule Field in Ocarina of Time, and depart by rail from your Scottish opening town to England and the Lake District in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And what does the Lake District and Hyrule Fields have in common? Well, for one, that they are an introduction to brand new kingdoms. The Kingdom of Hyrule in Ocarina of Time, and the Kingdom of Galar, or England, in Sword and Shield. Now, this is where the world, just like what it did in the case of Hyrule Fields in Ocarina of Time, will greatly open up as we get to the end of the Scottish Rail shortly after passing the border of England to, let's say, Carlisle, and reaching the renowned Lake District. And what is interesting is that this one appears to be rather seamless, just like Hyrule Field was in Ocarina of Time, with full freedom and maneuverability, and the only one linear goal is to the Industrial City in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and Hyrule Castle Town in Ocarina of Time.
You are probably mind blown by now, so we will summarize this quickly to all of you. Pokemon Sword and Shield's opening is set in southern Scotland, from where you embark the rail to the Lake District and cross the border into Galar proper. Also, Sword and Shield, Master Sword and Hylian Shield. There is no coincidence here. We got you by the fucking balls here, Game Freak. But more importantly, it is an HD recreation of the progression and structure found in a traditional linear 3D Zelda game, or more specifically, the HD remake with Ocarina of Time. We are obviously joking about the last one, but the truth is that Pokemon Sword and Shield is setting up for a way less restrictive and much more ambitious Pokemon experience. As for the Lake District, we will cover it extensively in the next episode of Inside Pokemon Sword and Shield and see how this will be the game's equivalent to Hyrule Field. As such, make sure to smash that like button for this dual revelation, and make sure to subscribe and press that shiny notification bell to not miss any of the episodes.
A big thanks goes to leolinguistics.tumblr.com and RuffledRowlit for joining this episode of Inside Pokemon Switch. Go and check out his channel in the end card.
Finally, we want to thank all of our gracious patrons, and in particular, royal producers Kenyatta Ali and Bradley Carriage for their support to the realm. You can join them too on patreon.com/commonrealm and become a part of our growing Patreon community. Until the next video, which is actually another Pokemon Sword and Shield video, this was the Commonwealth Realm, and we will see you there.